Yeah, Edo, can you hear me all right?
Guys,
So,
when just remind to mute yourself when you are not talking because you guys have background noise. So
good idea. So, I'm going to go ahead first, guys. I just want to say good afternoon, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of The Turning Point. As always, I'm thrilled to be with my family and dear friends. We got a lot to cover. So much has happened over the weekend with the BRICS alliance, the petrodollar, interest rates, and so forth. Unfortunately, David and I were flying out soon from Orlando Airport. As you know, we attended the Quantum Financial Summit, had a great opportunity to network and talk to people. But, anyways, we have a few minutes to touch on some very important topics before we hand things over to Vindel and Edo. So let's just get started. First thing I want to talk about is a macro perspective on everything that we just see unfolding. And I just want to start by saying just how incredible it is to see all the elements that we've been talking about and covering, how they're just aligning into a very transformative global shift towards this new monetary system and an economic order. Now, I know it's a bit early for big words, but a lot of recent developments regarding the end of the era of the petrodollar, right? And obviously, whether this transition happens like swiftly or gradually, it really doesn't matter because, again, the convergence of all these factors just signals, again, America's diminishing Western hegemony. And I think what we're witnessing with the BRICS nations launching their new digital currency, challenging Western geopolitical dominance, again, this marks that critical point where America's influence and it's just living on borrowed time, right? And we all know this is just going to continue to accelerate. So I'm just saying this suggests that, we got to prepare for significant inflation, expanding conflicts, possibly war, potentially higher interest rates, and of course, as those devalued dollars come over here to our shores, diminishing of our purchasing power. So, there's a lot of debate about the future of the petrodollar, but it's essential to also remember that the Biden administration's green agenda effectively also is accelerating the end of the petrodollar. So, I just think countries worldwide, I talked about this at the QFS, are again amassing hard assets, just getting ready to peg digital assets to these currencies. Obviously, this is exemplified by the forthcoming of the BRICS currency. So again, big things are happening, and it's just absolutely crucial to watch this. So let's start with David because him and I got to take a plane in like 10 minutes.
So just to sum up with what Versam was saying there, basically right now we are absolutely witnessing an implosion of the current system. I mean, we have central banks around the world right now. And what are they doing? They're lowering the interest rate by what? 25 basis points each. We've seen Canada do that. We've seen some European nations doing that. We're seeing most of the Commonwealth do it. Federal Reserve is out there. They're going to be doing it. But in an environment when right now, to think that, inflation has been reduced is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, most people know CPI numbers don't include two major elements, food and energy, which are some of the biggest impacts on everyday inflation for the rest, for the normal folks. So what is going on? Well, it's the utilization of easy money for major corporations to buy up the market. So big disconnect is between the economy and the market. And what was happening, and I mean, if we think about this, and I've said this before, but it's a great example to use, back when all this was going on in 2020, the economy came to an absolute screeching halt. I mean, you had manufacturing, shipping, supplying, everything around the wide world, people banging their pots and pans. What happened next? One of the biggest secular bull markets the world has ever seen. How did that happen? Central banks were buying the market. That's what they're doing now. Now, most central banks out there have been big time accumulators of bullion, gold and silver, gold, primarily gold, for quite a long time. And the issue is with the death of the petrodollar, June 9th, the contract that, was had by the United States, with Saudi Arabia, House of Saud, and the selling of oil in US dollars ended on June 9th. And absolutely, the death of the petrodollar is upon us. We just haven't had the funeral yet. So what's coming next? Is there going to be a replacement world reserve currency for the US dollar in the way it is now? I do not believe that it's going to be a national one. China doesn't have the infrastructure to do it, nor does Russia, nor does it. But we will more than likely see an agnostic, world reserve currency. I believe it will be issued by the IMF in an special drawing rate, something to that effect. But they are definitely using distributed ledger technology to do that, and they're backing it by gold. And what is most mesmerizing is the fact that majority of people are completely oblivious to this development going on, and yet the impacts that it will have on them financially is astounding. So, yeah, quite amazing. And we had some really amazing speakers, at the QFS that we just went to. I mean, you literally had General Tata show up. This is a 3-star general, and they're coming in and they're talking about this and actually making people aware. But the fact is most people are asleep, and so I think it's really important that this becomes and today, I was out there researching this morning. Guess what? Not one mainstream article on this massive financial development on a global scale. It is truly mesmerizing just how little they put this information out to make it available to the average people. So big. And yeah, like Bersan was saying, we're ready to hop on a plane here. I see Vandell, you've joined us. So hopefully that you guys can carry this all the way through. We'll leave the stream going.
Hey guys. Hello, everybody.
Yeah, so I said my 2 cents.
Yeah, well, we're about to hop on the plane, so at least you guys can take over the conversation from here. Please, guys, have a wonderful day. David and I will certainly get back to you guys next week on Monday, Turning Point. For now, let Edo and Vandell take over the conversation. They've been researching this all weekend, so they have a lot to update you guys on. All right.
I appreciate you guys taking your time in the airport. You guys are in a hurry.
We tried, man. We tried. It's just
joining us. I can give a call to the pilot. Maybe he can delay the flight for a while so we can have the full show.
Take care, okay? We'll see you later.
Thank you, guys.
Hello, everybody. Hello, Ido.
Yeah.
How are you?
How are you doing?
Doing great, man. Just
Great.
another day.
We're taking over the show now, just me and you. So
good,
very
because
happy.
we have
First time having the live streaming, just me and you. So it feels great.
I'm looking forward to it. We have actually quite a few things to cover that, like they said, are not being covered by the mainstream media as much. A few important things people should be paying attention to. So, yeah, do you want to go ahead and start? Or do you want me to start?
Yeah, so just to update you, before you came in, we were talking about with your brother and David about the gold, and also that the Petrodollar agreement has come to an end. So do you want to make some comments on that? Also, later on, I'm going to make some interesting comments about a new company that is looking to tokenize on the XRP ledger precious metals, so we can jump on that in a second.
Sounds good.
Okay, just give me a second here. I'm fixing.
Take your time.
The link that should be to my If you want, you can go ahead and start. I'm just fixing something on my X account here because apparently it's not being streamed.
Oh, okay.
Okay, yeah, now it's fixed.
You know what? I need to do the same thing. If you don't mind.
Is it streaming to your channel?
I'm doing it right
Guys,
now.
can you make some
I'm doing it right
for
now.
us? Yeah? Okay. So let's give us a few seconds here.
All right.
Okay, I got it fixed. Yeah, sorry guys. Usually.
Okay. I'm good on my end. So take your time and
Yeah, I'm good too.
we'll get started.
Yeah, I'm good too. I just fixed it on my X account, and I just checked on YouTube, and it's also all right. So.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah, so I just see some people are already curious about gold being tokenized on the XRP ledger. We'll talk about that on a second. But Vandell, why don't you go ahead and make some comments about the Petrodollar agreement, which is coming to an end? Actually, it came to an end yesterday, I guess, right?
Yeah. So in regards to that, there was some elements to that I wanted to clarify because I feel like there was a bit of a misunderstanding and a misconception. So the first thing is, so for the petrodollar, we all know that it's inevitably coming to an end. Whether that's on a paper, in agreement, on a document or not, it's obvious if you're paying attention to the world stage and what other leaders are doing. Alone, that says everything. So you actually don't need a physical documentation or an agreement to know what's going on. That, of course, would just be extra confirmation, but it's obviously clear. So, for those, again, who don't know, excuse me. So Saudi Arabia and the United States, they had a petrodollar agreement. This was basically the agreement that said the petrodollar in 1974 would be the world reserve, well, specifically the petrodollar, which is the US dollar, would be used as a settlement for trade. So between Saudi Arabia, they agreed to sell oil exclusively in US dollars, and that would be in exchange for US military security, that kind of support, and economic development assistance. And that was established in 1974. So, what's taking place right now is, here's the thing. So, the longevity of the petrodollar system, it's obviously depended on geopolitical and economic factors. Okay, we all know that. But the thing is this: rather than a formal time-bound commitment, so the idea was both parties would establish this mutually beneficial agreement. That's what it was. So it's not necessarily written in stone, although it really is, but it's not to the public. They have their agreements that they don't show to the public, of course, between the nations. And then there's agreements that are made public. Now, the idea is the petrodollar would continue to be upheld, which is clearly ending currently. And as I was saying, anyone paying attention to what other leaders are saying and what they're not saying, and most importantly, what they're doing, should be able to tell you that it's over. It's a done deal. So, yeah, someone can argue, on the outside that these arrangements, they're not maintained or have been maintained through mutual interest, geopolitical and economic interests between both parties. But the thing is, that's as long as it's mutually beneficial for both parties. And the case is, as I said, if anybody paying attention, it's not mutually beneficial anymore. So that tells you it's ending. There are other indicators as well that can tell you it's ending, but that's the main one right there. It's the geopolitical and economic global factors taking place. So what are they doing, kind of thing? Well, it's obvious they're dumping the dollar. They're not interested in buying treasuries. They're already working on other currency and settlement mechanisms for trade. The BRICS already have more members joining. As a matter of fact, BRICS is about to announce their new currency, which supposedly is supposed to be 55 US dollars for each BRIC currency. Now, that will completely create extreme inflation in the United States if these nations decide to use a different currency at the same time and dump the dollar. Now, whether that will happen or not, that's just me speculating. It's a possibility, of course. Maybe you might think it's not probable, but it's definitely a possibility. So the point of this whole discussion in regards to the petrodollar is that your dollar value is decreasing. whether you agree or not. And you don't want to be holding US dollars. So the idea is to be paying attention to this and start making strategic moves to protect your financial sovereignty and your personal finances. Because if you have a lot of US dollars, they're just going to continue to lose value. And every great empire and fiat currency system, history has shown us, collapses at some point. Now, today we have all this technology, crypto, blockchain, manipulation that they're capable of doing. So it might not end up the same way. It might not unfold the same way as in the past, but it's certainly coming to an end.
And I think it's it's not a coincidence that there are multiple events taking time simultaneously. I mean, by the time we have in the end of the petrodollar, we have blockchain technology, which is actually evolving at light speed. At the same time, we have Russia and China dumping US bonds, US treasuries at an all-time high. So we have multiple events, the massive inflation. I mean, the dollar is just not worth anything. And people sometimes have a tendency to think that it's only the USD, but you have all these currency pairs like euros to USD, the Australian dollars for USD. I mean, that's a whole system that's debt-based. Central banks around the world are colluded. They have been acting in the same way. So for me, that's not only the downfall of the dollar, as sometimes people are here in Europe and they are thinking that they will not be affected. And I think that's very wrong. I think that's going to be a global transformation with European countries as much affected as the United States. I think the outcome is going to be pretty similar for Western countries, especially not only financially talking, but also from something that I commented on the last week on this podcast, also about how the Chinese model is actually going to dictate the next decades, meaning our freedom is also at risk. And I want to quickly tie this to the price of gold, because the fact that we are actually abandoning this model where the US dollar is the global reserve currency, that means for me, and I want to hear your thoughts on that, Vandel, I know you and Versan did a lot of videos about the revaluation of precious metals and how that's going to be impactful, especially for the price of gold, because that means that we probably moving back towards a gold standard. And as far for my understanding, the more they are actually printing money, the higher the price of gold will have to be to actually counterfeit all of this money printing, so that we can actually fix the inflation problem. I think it's inevitable that we are moving towards a new gold standard. So I definitely want to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, so first of all, gold has been money and has been around for over 5,000 years. Now, anytime we issue debt, or let's not complicate things, I'm going to explain it in simple English. Issuing debt means creating money out of thin air. That's all it means, okay? Bankers, strategical, central planners, the elites, they like to complicate everything, especially the world of finance and banking and the monetary system, the financial system, because when they keep it so complex and not easy to understand, people never know what's going on. So that's why they keep it complicated. But every time they print money out of thin air, issue debt, asset prices go up. And that includes gold too. Now, the thing is, gold is manipulated, and the only reason the price is manipulated, it's lower than what it really should be, is because of paper gold and contracts. This can easily be done by creating an abundant supply of gold, which is not real physical gold, and they could create this illusion that there is an abundant supply of it because there's paper gold. So that's how you can do price manipulation on the back end. Now, back to what you were saying. Yes, I believe we're going to a gold standard. This directly ties into the blockchain technology and digital assets. They're going to have this tie and this intersection where they connect. They're going to go hand in hand. And this includes commodities too. So, basket of commodities, you know, it could be precious metals, other commodities. But I do believe, based on extensive research, analysis, and speaking to people within my network, and knowing what I know as a former banker and executive assistant to the chief financial officer for two major oil and gas companies based in Dubai and Houston, from my understanding and what I believe is we are going back to a gold standard. And, one of gold's primary roles for central banks is to diversify their reserves. That's why you've been seeing this extensive accumulation of gold from central banks around the world since 2010. And, it's the other thing is what I see happening is gold is going to establish itself as a world reserve asset on the central bank's balance sheet. That's coming. I really do believe so. And I have reasons for claiming that and making that theory. But there's many other reasons behind it. If we go back in history, that really helps you understand where we are and helps you understand where we're going. See, it's very difficult to put the pieces of the puzzle together and know where we're going if you don't understand the history of the banking and financial system and monetary policy. So, as we all know, a lot of the viewers know this, but this is why the Bank for International Settlements, the BIS, reclassified gold from a tier 3 asset to a tier 1 asset, which is basically associated with zero risk. Basically, it's the safest physical asset you can own in the world. That's why they made that change in 2019. And this is exactly why central banks have been consistently net buyers of gold on an annual basis since 2010. And as a matter of fact, they've accumulated over 7,800 metric tons and still growing. And this will tie into digital assets and blockchain technology. Because as our friend Andy Sheckman says, that if we don't tie these digital assets or have them backed by something, it's basically a repackaging of the existing shitty monetary system we have.
As you said, it's like a multi-dimensional chess game. It's very complex to put all of this information together. Even for me, that I spent countless hours looking into the gold reevaluation and how this is going to interact, especially with blockchain technology. And a couple of months ago, I say this for our viewers, I went to the Paris Blockchain Week, and doing one live with Versan, I actually said that in one of these days of Paris Blockchain Week, I had the opportunity to sit with someone that is working in a gold-related company. And well, even though I cannot say names here and not even mention the company's name for the sake of privacy, but I have said this on this show previously, that Ripple has openly approached one company that is actually seeking to tokenize gold on the XRP ledger, and they actually tried to acquire this company. So this shows that Ripple has an active interest in gold. Okay, and yesterday came some breaking news, and even though it's breaking news, I was expecting already. And just guys, don't get me wrong, it's not the same company that I was talking on the Paris Blockchain Week. It turned out to be a different company, but allow me to just, when I read the headline that I have in front of myself here, it's actually XRP Ledger ready to adopt tokenized gold and silver in 2024. So it's called Meld Gold, and actually they have made an active partnership with Ripple by launching 2 new stablecoins on the XRP Ledger backed by gold and silver. So I think that's very great news, especially for the XRP Ledger ecosystem. And that just shows that gold is going to have, in my opinion, a fundamental role, not only on the traditional financial system, but also on what we can call the quantum financial system, or the new blockchain based financial system, in a way that gold is also going to play a major role on this new system. So I really think that gold is like at the basics. It's one of the most fundamental assets, if not the most important one. And that's why it's so important to be diversified, not only in digital assets, but also in tangible assets, being the case for gold and silver. So I was just watching a video from Jim, I think it's Jim Richards, and he was making some calculations where he predicted the price of gold to actually to fulfill its role. If we go back to a gold standard, he actually predicted the price of gold to $27,000. He actually presented all the calculations, making it necessary to actually go at least above 20,000. So I think it's really important to be diversified, and that's something that I have to say that you and Versan have said multiple times on your channel, and you were actually the pioneers that, at least I heard. It was like in the past you couldn't say a lot about XRP and gold because a lot of people would come out and say it's a conspiracy theory. And just yesterday, Ripple partners with a gold-related company. So, want to make some comments on that, Vandal?
Yeah. So, yes. Well, thank you for that. Yeah, I remember early on we were talking about the connections between precious metals and blockchain digital assets. As a matter of fact, we started when we started bringing on notable guests on the show. Every time we interviewed them, we would ask them about XRP, even though some of them are Bitcoin maxis. You know, that's the thing. We want to bring people on that have a different perspective. Not everybody that we bring on the show sees eye to eye with us. And that's the whole point of a powerful conversation, because now we could bring in to light certain things maybe they didn't see before, you know. But the idea was to get more information on the connection between precious metals, gold, and digital assets like XRP or XLM and some other ones. Now, in regards to what Ripple's working on, I'm going to say this, and you know, people can take it with a grain of salt, but just so you know from experience, and a lot of people do know this already, that a lot of decisions that are made are not made at the last minute by these big corporations, central banks, and conglomerates. The decisions are made behind the scenes, in the courtrooms, at the table with their shareholders and other individuals that are associated with the company. And they think long term. So when they do make certain announcements like this thing you caught on the news regarding Ripple and precious metals, my feeling tells me that this has been something planned out for a long time. And they don't just drop the bomb on people. They slowly reveal the plans, little by little. It's a gradual process. But the point I'm making is that a lot of the news coming out has been already in their plans for a long time. But just now they're starting to reveal a little by little of the information. And that's just how they operate. They never give it all the truth all at once. You know, they plan these things out for a long time behind the scenes, and then they give a little, you know, crumbs to the public. So I think where we're going is some of these digital assets are going to be backed by precious metals. It could be a 1-to-1 ratio or something else. But some of them will also be backed by commodities or a basket of commodities. That's absolutely, in my opinion, where we're going. And this is where the revaluation will tie into specific digital assets, in my opinion.
Yeah, I love your comments on that. And we can briefly touch in something else that has happened. I think yesterday came the news that the G7 countries are actually lowering interest rates. So with that comes a lot of economical consequences, especially in my opinion for the middle class and hurting business around the world. I think it's a short-term solution for a problem that is generalized, creating more inflation. So how do you see that, Vandel?
Yeah, so let's see. I'm pulling up here. I know the central bank of, well, the European first, the Bank of Canada was the first G7 bank to start lowering interest rates. I think they went to 4.75%. That was the first. Then after that was the European Central Bank lowered interest rates for the first time since 2019. So what's interesting here is that move aligns with the 4-year debt refinance cycle, and it aligns with the Bitcoin halving. It also aligns with the 4-year bull run cycle in the crypto space. So, I mean, if you had to ask me, our analysis is we accurately predicted that by 2024, mid 2024, central banks are going to start lowering interest rates. And that's exactly what happened just a few days ago. So, what this means is, yes, during this phase of lowering interest rates, it's going to be a two-tier. You're going to have people that are going to benefit from this, and then you're going to have the other side of the spectrum of people that are going to suffer from this. So it's just the beginning of central banks lowering interest rates, and more central banks are going to follow. Now, the United States, this is something David talks about from Digital Outlook very often, but he says a lot of times the U.S. central bank, they'll go after. They're not going to be the first ones to punch the ball. So we can expect that other central banks in the U.S., the Federal Reserve, are going to follow and start lowering interest rates. That's what's coming, because they need to refinance the debt, and they can't do it with a high interest rate. So there are many reasons for them lowering rates, but that's one of the main reasons, because we're at the point of the cycle where the debt needs to be refinanced, and they still need to pay the interest on the previous debt from the 2020 and the stimulus and all that.
Yeah, it's basically a snowball effect, and I think the only solution is going to be an economical reset, which is actually aligned with going back to a gold standard. You know,
Yeah, definitely. But another thing that's, well, in regards to interest rates being lowered, so lower rates reduce the cost of borrowing, of course. So that's a good thing, encouraging, spending and investment. But it's a bit different this time. Why? Because before, when we had lower interest rates, inflation wasn't as high as it is today. The cost of living was not as high as it is today. So now they are starting to lower interest rates, but the cost of living, the buying power of the dollar, is significantly weaker than it was 10, 20 years ago. So
even 5 years ago.
yeah, even 4 years ago. Exactly. Now, so one of the reasons that cryptos, in my opinion, are going to shoot up as they start lowering interest rates is because the thing is this: it's going to increase more demand from investors and institutions to move to riskier assets. And that's stocks, cryptocurrencies, digital assets. So if you look historically at the previous crypto bull runs, and this is something I talk about constantly, is that the debt refinance cycle, it's every 4 years. It's actually every 3 to 5 years, but if you average it out, let's say every 4 years. That's when the debt needs to get refinanced. That is the same time every 4 years as the Bitcoin halving and the bull run cycles. So They coincide together. Now, the thing is this: when they do lower the interest rates, that happens to be around the same time they print money, they issue some sort of stimulus or form of money supply, into the M2 money supply that makes its way into the system, into the economy. And that's the same time we have a bull run with a lot of these cryptos and digital assets. So look at it now. They did this 4 years ago. They issued money, they issued debt, printed money, and we had a bull run cycle. This was 2020, 2021. 4 years later, here we are today, where the Bitcoin halving was in April. Crypto bull run is just getting started. Now, central banks are starting to lower interest rates. And we already know they're going to continue printing money because that's what they do. They just print money, and asset prices go up and your buying power goes down. So what I'm saying is they're going to lower interest rates, and whether people think it or not, this is how the liquidity cycles work and the debt refinance cycle. When they lower interest rates, you're going to see digital assets and cryptos start pumping. And this is going to be a result of lowering interest rates and printing more money. And that's what's coming.
Yeah, I think there is the benefit on the short term that at least crypto can get benefited from this transformation. And there is some headlines that I want to read over here, which I think is very relevant for the current times. And that's about Tether. And it's very interesting how Ripple stablecoin is coming at the same time that Tether is actually getting vanished away, especially from Europe. But we also know that there is a risk in the United States as well. So Binance is removing non-MiCA compliant stablecoins for users in the Union European. So that means MiCA is actually the European regulation for crypto, impacting Tether and other, they called it unauthorized stablecoins. So there is a chance that they're gonna actually unlist Tether from Binance in Europe, And I remember watching on the Paris Blockchain Week for any sign of Tether, and why I talk so many times about the Paris Blockchain Week, because it's a great indicator of what are the trends, especially for Europe. And there was no sign of Tether. Nowadays we know that Tether has not been fully audited. We know that Tether has been fined by the CTFC in over $40 million. CEO has not come in public for a long time. So I think there's a major shift in the old crypto days that we used to have Tether as the major stablecoin. And I think that's very interesting to see that Ripple somehow predicted this. I mean, the same time they just launching a new stablecoin on the XRP ledger. And I think it's very interesting that we might see that Tether is going to be unable to actually purchase US bonds because they have been doing that for a while. And that only leaves me room to speculate if Ripple is going to be the next one that's going to be dealing with the US government. Do you have any thoughts on that about Tether?
Tether.
Yeah.
I think Tether is, I know Versan says this a lot, and you do. It's a ticking time bomb. So it's kind of like the US dollar. It's backed by nothing except just confidence and thin air. And at some point in the future, it's going to implode. It's inevitable. That's just how currencies work that are backed by nothing. And a fiat currency is no different. And a digital currency backed by nothing is no different as well. It's just a matter of time. They can only keep it afloat for as long as they can. God knows. We don't know exactly. But it's obviously a ticking time bomb. And that's why even when I keep funds in some of my accounts, I'll never keep them in stable coins. Well, not Tether at all. I think it's just too risky. And again, it's just a matter of time. So, for anybody that's followed the money and done their research on Tether, it's associated with a lot of various nefarious activities. And of course, one of them is keeping the price of Bitcoin up and the crypto space as well, but other activities as well. And we can't really talk too much about that here on the show in this segment, maybe in the future. But it's tied to different nefarious activities. It could be, money laundering and some other things, which we'll cover at some point. So I think what they're doing is it goes back to them just buying time. They're just buying time. They're using it for multiple purposes to serve their own interest, and they're just buying time at the moment. But it's a ticking time bomb, and it's going to come to a point where they have to crack down on it. And I would like to say something too. If Tether was able to flourish and continue being used as a stablecoin for this long in the United States, that tells you that the policymakers allowed it. Okay? If they did not want to allow it and they believed it was a threat to the stability of the financial system, the monetary system, potential investors all across the world in the United States, they would have banned it. They would have cracked down in a regulatory fashion, and got to the bottom of it. But they did not do that. Policymakers did not ban it. They didn't crack down on it. They didn't continue in the investigation and audits the way they were supposed to. So that tells us that they're allowing it to continue. So why are they doing that? It's because it's serving their own interest, or they're paid to shut up and delay it and not do anything about it. This is all planned out. I mean, these things are not random, because the truth is, if they want to get someone or crack down on something, I'm telling you, they have the capability to do it within a few months if they wanted to. But so far, it's been going on for years with Tether, and nothing's been done. This is because they're allowing it. What are your comments on that, Ido? What do you think?
I totally agree with you, and I love the perspective that you gave, that policymakers are allowing it, and I 100% agree. And the thing is, I think I have said many times, it's a ticking bomb, but I think it's going to be like a self implosion. They're going to decide when they're going to implode Tether. I think sooner or later it's going to happen. Just like they allowed FTX, and they actually benefited themselves with the collapse of FTX. SBF was just a pound that they just used.
Puppet.
Just a puppet, exactly.
Yeah, of course.
And very similar to what happened to UST. You guys remember Luna has also collapsed. And the very sad part about the collapse of the whole Terra Luna ecosystem is that the people affected, one thing is you have your investments, and that's right, invest in crypto, and there is a possibility that when you're investing, you are actually psychologically prepared that you have, even if it's a very small chance, your assets can go to zero. But when you have the case of UST, you have people who are actually holding a stable coin, and that's a difference between life savings and investments, and you had people losing their life savings because they were not prepared for a stable coin to collapse. And you said a very valuable advice before that: when you hold stable coin, when we have money, and I do the same, when I have let me put in other words, I have most of my crypto in multiple cold wallets, but I do have some money in exchange. It's a small fraction of my portfolio. But whenever I hold this money in exchanges, I'm not letting in Tether. I might choose USDC, which I kind of trust more than Tether. I might live in euros. I'm not saying euros are the greatest safe haven, but if I have to compare with Tether, I think it's far more safe than holding a stablecoin that is virtually backed by nothing, which has been fined by the CTFC. I said this multiple times. It's actually a ticking bomb. It's just a matter of when they're going to press the button. Also tied to Evergrande. So we have the collapse of real estate happening in China. Evergrande is highly connected to Tether, so be very cautious when you guys holding Tether on exchanges. I don't recommend that.
Yeah, and I wanted to say something regarding USDC. So personally, I don't have anything in stablecoins. However, though, USDC is obviously a safer option if you're going to have any in a stablecoin. Now, maybe people know this, maybe they don't, but in the last Davos meeting in Switzerland, so the Jeremy Allaire from Circle. Now, Circle is the company that issues USDC. So, well, what I'm trying to say is that BlackRock manages the reserves for USDC. And BlackRock is an investor in Circle. And a lot of people don't know that. And we already know the power that BlackRock has. So it seems like it's almost to some extent safe to hold USDC because of that connection I just just shared right now. That's a big deal.
Just funny how the dots connect together. When I went again Paris Blockchain Week, I saw major sponsors of the event. Just right in the entrance, you have this panel of all the companies, and on top of the panel, you have three companies. The first three ones aligned: Ripple, Stellar, Circle. And you had Brad Garlinghouse sharing the stage with Circle CEO. So these for me are great indicators, and it's very funny because we never happened to actually talk about Circle, and now we just funny to see that we came to the same conclusion. So I think that's definitely a reason for that.
Yeah, well, this ties into the whole tokenization thing, but it's a big deal that BlackRock is an investor in Circle.
Yeah.
Look, BlackRock, they're very strategic with their investments, especially when they dump a lot of money into something. They only choose the best for the most part. So if BlackRock is a major investor in Circle and manages the reserves for USDC, what does that tell people? You know, if you're comparing it to Tether, okay, that means Tether is the fool's gold, and it's a ticking time bomb, and they plan to wipe out people with it. When like you said, they're gonna let it do its thing, and then let it implode, and then again, more and more people are gonna get wiped out, just like FTX and Luna and the previous incidents we had. And this will give them more reason to move quicker on regulations.
Let alone the effect that's going to have in the entire crypto ecosystem. Talking mostly here about Bitcoin and Ethereum.
Yes.
So it's going to be a massive impact.
It is, absolutely. And people better be ready for that. And that's why you got to be smart where you put your money, where you invest, and where you hold your funds.
Right, so we are almost 1 hour, and I think we covered most of the topics. There is, however, one last topic before we jump into some final thoughts over here. Mm-hmm. And that again comes with a new partnership of Ripple. And actually it's quite fresh news. So Ripple has partnered with Clear Junction, enabling instant GBP Euro payouts. So basically a new corridor that's established between the UK and Europe. And that for me just shows how Ripple has been advancing in every area. I mean, you look for the United States, you look for Europe, massive connections in Asia with all the banks in Japan, Dubai. I mean, it's just clear for me that Ripple is positioning itself in the core of the financial system. It's like Ripple is somehow becoming, I would say it's like a bank. It's a world bank. It's assuming that the role similar to what the World Bank, or maybe we can talk about the IMF. So do you have any thoughts on that? And I'm not sure if you have seen the news. That's very fresh.
Yes, I did. And Ripple, they basically are a bank. So yeah, they're a bank. Okay. They have multiple, financial services that they offer, with RippleNet and some other products. But ultimately, the way I look at it is, as my brother says and you say, the value is in their key product, and that's the XRP token and the XRP ledger. And the value within that is in the protocol and the network. So the excuse me, the XRP, the Ripple, the company, what they're doing is pretty much what Amazon did. They're like the Amazon of the monetary system or the payment system. That's what it really seems like. They're making strategical moves on a global scale, primarily outside the United States, and they're securing all their partnerships. They're preparing I think the infrastructure and the rails are pretty much already laid down. They're just preparing everything else that they need to uh, have a full ready to go framework and infrastructure to pretty much hit the switch. That's what it seems like if you're paying attention to the moves they're making. But in other words, I still see it, as I previously stated, like the Amazon of payments. And that's what it seems like they're doing. They're positioning themselves very strategically on a global scale at the moment. That's what they're doing.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. It's like we said already, it's a military operation, I think.
Yeah, and another thing I want to mention is I know a lot of people talk about price and market cap. First of all, I don't even check the price anymore. It's been a while. Occasionally I'll see what's going on in the market since I monitor everything. But as for looking at prices for some of these digital assets, no, I'm not even concerned about it. I don't even think about it because I'm a long-term investor. I think on a long-term horizon. I don't focus on that. I know what I hold. I made the investments. I'm protecting my investments, and I forget about it. You know, but where I was going with that is that the price. A lot of people will have this theory or say, "Oh, it's not going to do anything because the market cap is this, but for it to get to $2 or $5, it needs to be this market cap." Now, for people who don't know, market cap is just a psychological metric. Okay. The market cap of Amazon and some big names and stocks, big companies, they were very small at one time. But once the use case really kicked in and mainstream adoption took place, the valuations of those prices increased significantly. And guess what happened to the market cap? It exploded, okay, over a span of months and even years. So the whole market cap argument is the stupidest thing I've ever heard, and it's irrelevant because the market cap today does not determine the market cap next year or tomorrow. That can completely do a 180 and go from this number to something significantly higher. And that's what will happen with some of these digital assets. That's exactly what's going to happen. And we've seen this with the dot-com era and the internet boom with various companies. And I know I keep referring to Amazon, but that's just one example. Google is another example, and there's several more. So what do you think? That's really how it plays out.
100% agree. I think people brought up this concept a lot from the stock market, and cryptos aren't inherently owned like stocks. So, in my opinion, market cap is a secondary metric. We should not be making price predictions based solely on market cap. And there's a lot of crypto bros, especially the Bitcoin maxis, that they love to utilize this comparison of market cap, which makes absolutely not sense. We just talk, as Versen also say this, I don't even see XRP as just a cryptocurrency. For me, it's a piece of infrastructure of the new financial system, something that's going to run trillions, if not more, trillions of dollars in transactions and cross-border payments, tokenizing. Basically, everything can be tokenized on the XRP ledger. So there is plenty of room for the market cap to do like 1,000x from current levels. If we just
Yes,
think
of
about
course.
the whole, yeah. So it's just, guys, don't base yourself on market cap. That's bullshit. Sorry, I have to say how it is, and I have no other word to call it.
Yeah, you're right. It is bullshit. And that's one issue that a lot of rookie investors face. They put too much emphasis on minuscule things that aren't really that important at the current time, and market cap is one of them. For example, some people will argue, "Oh, the price is 50 cents. I'm not going to buy it. I'm not going to own it." Well, that's a really stupid reason to not buy something because the price is something now. The price now doesn't determine the price tomorrow. So what kind of logic is that? There is no logic behind that. It's a nonsensical statement, in my opinion. And for Bitcoin, let's shift there for a second. They want people to think that Bitcoin is decentralized, 100% robust system that's difficult to shut down. But the argument that I make is that's completely illogical because they could shut it down or they can make it extremely undesirable to own in the future. And this kind of ties into Tether too, but there's many ways they could shut it down or make it unattractive. And that's regulatory crackdowns, closing the on and off ramps. That's very simple to do with policies. Network attacks, a cyber attack. There's economic factors, BlackRock market manipulation. That's why they're buying up all the Bitcoin, because ETFs are known to be easy to manipulate. A lot of people don't know that. You can easily manipulate an ETF. It's been done before. Do your research. So as BlackRock acquires more Bitcoin, we're basically giving them more control over the decentralized asset. So it's not decentralized anymore. The more they accumulate, the less decentralized it becomes. And, there could be an infrastructure attack, power grid attack, a public announcement to create loss of trust. For example, revealing the creator or something, who knows, the group. So there's many ways they can take it down when they're ready,
A
if they want.
51, even a 51% attack where miners would come together, they can actually increase the supply way over 21 million Bitcoin. So we could
Yeah,
go on and on.
it's true. So
It's
in my
enough
opinion,
the dormant Satoshi's wallet to actually wake up and you have panics on the markets.
yeah, and a
Yeah,
lot,
someone
you're
just
right.
commented here.
I'm sorry, Ido, go ahead.
Yeah, someone actually commented Satoshi could sell his Bitcoin as well. Yeah, that could perfectly happen at any time.
Well, a lot of people don't know this. That's true. But the biggest holder of Bitcoin is the US government. They
Yeah,
confiscated most of the Bitcoin from Silk Road, and some other players. So, I mean, that tells you a lot. The government is running the show here. And that's why the
yeah,
policy is in place. Remember, the corporations and the major financial institutions, people think the government controls them. No, no, no. That's not how the world works. It's the other way around. The big families, the major financial institutions and players, the corporations, they control the government, and they tell them what laws to pass and what not to pass. They work together like that. They are in bed together, but it's the other way around. The government is not in control. It's the banking cartel and the financial institutions and the big corporations that control the government. And they really determine what policies are in place for the most part, not 100%, but for the most part. And when something is in their best interest, the financial institutions will make sure that the policies in place for them to complete their agenda will be put into place or allowed. And that's why you still have Tether, Bitcoin, wash trading. Bitcoin, the price is 100% manipulated. We've done a whole article and followed the money on this, where there's something called wash trading taking place, where there's back and forth buying and selling and volume for trading Bitcoin to keep this illusion that there is demand and activity going on. But
We
it's
had a
not
whole
100%.
bull run. We had a whole bull run that actually only happened because of the empty gox, the
Yeah.
trading boots, right?
hmm
We
Yes.
had an entire bull run that was based on something like this, that was algorithmically artificially purchasing bitcoins, and we had a whole bull run on that. So the price is 100% manipulated.
Yes.
And actually, in my opinion, this is just speculation, but they put things really in plain sight. And
They
Linda
do.
P. Jones actually sent me a message on that. And if she's watching us, I want to
She's
say
very
hello.
smart.
Yeah,
Very
she's
smart lady.
incredibly smart. And it took me years to realize that Satoshi Nakamoto, which means NS, Nakamoto Satoshi, because in Japanese the surname comes before the name. And if you just think about that in plain sight, it really stands for National Security Agency,
Yeah, the
NS.
NSA. hmm
NSA,
Yeah.
and actually XRP was initially called XNS. So X stands for a currency that's not issued by any countries. So you have NS, Nakamoto Satoshi, which actually equals National Security Agency. So there you have the currency of the National Security Agency.
Yeah, and a lot of people don't know this, but the NSA paper, it was in 1996. They created a paper, the National Security Agency. It's called How to Make a Mint. And it's
Yeah,
basically the cryptography of anonymous
electronic
electronic
cash.
cash.
Yeah,
And the interesting thing behind that is that the National Security Agency, the NSA, developed the SHA 256 hashing algorithm in 2001. It's called SHA-256. It's a hashing algorithm that they developed in 2001 with the goal of improving earlier hashing functions like the MD5 and SHA-1. But the interesting here is that the SHA-256 is the popular algorithm actually used in Bitcoin encryption. So there's a direct tie right there too. And then of course there's many other factors. We had the
you know
2008
that
financial
if
crisis.
you go in the authors of that paper, you have two papers that are related to cryptography of electronic cash. One of them being in the authors, you're gonna find Tatsuaki Okamoto. That's very funny. Believe me, that
Yes.
is Tatsuaki Okamoto. And of course, we have all the connections from the Ripple's developers, the creators of the XRP Ledger. We have David Schwartz was a
He
contractor for the
participated.
NSA, also did works for the military in the US, the FBI. So they have the whole team of executives that they perfectly fit. In my opinion, the organization is not one person. It's like likely to be an organization. For me, it's the NSA, which involved also the creators of the XRP Ledger.
Yeah, this is a long-term military operation, the creation of Bitcoin, and it's not a coincidence that right after the 2008 financial crisis in 2009, Bitcoin was created by some mystical, unknown, magical character who doesn't want to reveal themselves and has a intent on fixing the financial system. That is the stupidest thing I've ever heard in my whole life. Anybody with any logical sense would know that if you combine that information with everything else we just talked about and what we do know, that it's so obvious that this is a long-term agenda for other reasons, and it's not to fix the flawed financial system. That is not the goal. The ultimate goal here is to give them more control. Now, of course, Bitcoin was the first cryptocurrency ever created. So that's why most people that do know of any cryptocurrency, they know Bitcoin. But the sad part is they don't understand the history of it. And I don't think they have the intuition, not necessarily intuition, the information to piece the puzzles together and see our perspective, how we look at it and what we were just talking about, which is a big problem because when I mean, every bull cycle, every crypto bull run, we have Bitcoin goes up, Ethereum goes up, and altcoins go up. But that's kind of the sequence. But when Bitcoin does go up and increase in price every bull cycle, 4 years, people need to understand that What drives it? It's the money printing and the liquidity cycles. As liquidity goes up, Bitcoin goes up. That's why multiple cryptocurrencies move at the same time. It's because liquidity is going into them because the liquidity cycle. It's not just one investor or a few or some institutions putting money in one Bitcoin and they decided to do it every 4 years. No, it's because every 4 years we have a liquidity cycle that takes place. And that flow of capital makes its way across world financial systems and into the markets. And one of those markets is the asset class, cryptocurrencies.
And then you think that it's also aligned the cycle with the US presidentials every
Yeah,
4 years with the
every
halving.
4 years.
Everything is aligned. And I
Exactly.
think it really comes down to gain control of every single transaction in the planet. That's part of the plan. So think from their perspective, launch a beta test coin, launch the test net, let it roll for 10 years, 15 years, allow the most brilliant minds in this world to try to actually get rich, enrich themselves by exploiting bugs, by making use of the technology so that you can come with the best improved version, which in my opinion happens to be XRP, XLM, XDC, IOTA, HBAR, all of these new technologies that are clearly disruptive. There's no competition,
Mhm.
and you just have the basis for the new financial system. I think that's the plan.
I'm with you 100%. That is the plan. And ultimately, the even long term goal is something we could discuss in the next segment is tokenization. Tokenization of
Absolutely.
everything. That's their plan right here. Now, whether it plays out like that or not, only God knows. But ultimately, that's the ultimate goal. It's the tokenization of everything. That's a digital
I got
ID.
Yeah, I got an interview from David Schwartz 2013 where he was talking about the transformation that blockchain technology is going to have on human behavior, and
Mhm.
that's very concerning how they're going to use tokenization for that.
Yeah,
He was talking
that's
about that over 10 years ago, which is quite
oh,
unbelievable.
I believe it totally. Yeah, and this is BlackRock's ultimate goal. Larry Fink, the head of BlackRock, he made it very clear in his interviews, and he said that what they want to do is tokenize everything and everyone, including nature, and they're already doing it on nature. And the way for them to move forward with the tokenization of all assets, when you really think about it, it's kind of like telling you that you'll own nothing. Because if everything is in a digital form, then you don't own anything physical, or it's something to think about. But ultimately, that's their BlackRock's goal. He said it, he made it clear. And forget what they're saying for a minute. If you actually look at what they're doing, that's their goal. For example, Mark Carney, who's with the United Nations, I think he's the director of climate change right now, but he was the former Bank of England. He was on the Financial Stability Board, and he works closely with BlackRock on tokenization. So there's a few people behind the scenes that people don't even talk about. They don't get any media attention, and that's how they like it. They don't want the attention. But if you look at their paperwork, their documents, their publishings, what they're saying, the conferences and seminars, conferences and panels they attend, that's what they're saying. They're telling you in plain sight. This is the goal here. And then again, Larry Fink said that. That's the ultimate goal, which we'll save for another discussion, but certainly very interesting.
Yeah, I recommend everyone. So I just put in my charger here. I recommend everyone to actually go and watch on Netflix. It's a show. Maybe you heard about it, maybe you didn't. It's actually called Black Mirror, and that's is I don't call it a show. It's like they just telling you how the world's gonna look like by 2030. Basically, everything's gonna be tokenized. As I said previously, I have seen companies they were in the Paris Blockchain Week. They tokenizing water. We know that
Yeah.
Ripple has a partnership with the United Nations, so carbon credits, and that ties back to the interview I have seen in 2013. How come in 2013 David Schwartz already knew that we're gonna see tokenization of carbon credits on the XRP ledger. I mean, the plan is rolling out for decades. It's not something that started 5 years ago, 3 years ago. Everything has been already decided. You
Great
guys
point.
just seen everything is just unfolding. It's not a matter of, it's just a matter of when it's going to happen, you know? Yeah, and someone says, that's exactly how it is. A lot of predictive programming in Black Mirror. It's 100%.
Yes, sir. That's true. That's how they do it. And the world of intelligence, it's called perception management. They need to
Right.
control people's perception. Yeah, go ahead, Ido. Any
Yeah, we
last
got
words, brother?
over 1 hour and 20. So I think we just jump into the final thoughts. So first, I want to thank you, Vandel. Had a wonderful time with you today.
Always.
We took over the show. I hope that we didn't disappoint our audience. We were supposed to have Versan and David, but if you just joining the show now, you can watch the repetition. It's going to be on the YouTube channel of Vandel, on the Black Swan Capitalist, and you can actually watch the repetition. You're going to find that in the first 20 minutes, we indeed had Versan and David. They were actually in the airport, and that's the reason they had to take the flight. I tried to tell them to convince the captain that they should delay the flight, but they didn't hear me. So hopefully they will catch up next Monday. So yeah, thank you. Any final thoughts?
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody for watching Ido and I speak today. I hope everybody finds some value in the information and the discussions we're having. And Ido, I love you, man. It's always great
Love
talking to
you,
you.
yeah.
I'm really glad that we're building this community and this connection, because this is what the world needs. We need more like-minded people to connect, set aside our differences, and wake up together. This is how we'll make change. Besides that, there's no other alternative. So
Absolutely. And let's see, next week we can go deeper on the tokenization aspects and how we can actually protect ourselves, because I think that's the big thing right now.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely next Monday we'll be able to get into those topics. And last thing I want to say, anybody watching, as you know, Versan and I, we have a Black Swan Capitalist YouTube channel and our website where we offer one-on-one book calls and sessions for anybody that needs to have some personalized assistance or discuss any of the topics we primarily focus on. Feel free to reach out to us. And the last thing is, I do have my personal YouTube channel that I did set up not too long ago, where I cover a variety of topics and a lot of short clips I post up there. It's called Vandel Al Jarrah. It's my personal YouTube. So feel free to follow and subscribe if you're interested in more of this type of content. And thank you guys in advance.
Yeah, thank you. And very brilliant move to be diversified also on the channels. We never know when they're going to come and shut down the platform. So yeah.
Yeah, and follow Ido, you guys. This guy keeps putting out amazing content. Thank you,
Yeah,
brother.
thanks for that. Coming from you, I appreciate a lot. And thank you everyone for the comments. A lot of kindness. And we're going to see you guys next Monday.
Next Monday.
Thank you.
All right, Ido, I'll talk to you later, buddy.
Yeah, talk to you. Going to tap here to end the stream. Thank you.